It's me, Eddie Zupati. We're back at it again with another commentary video. Yippee! Oh my god. I know y'all are bored to death or something with this whole thing. You're just background noise for someone here. But I'm going to talk about a few things. The main thing being that I left Prime Games and the reason why I left it. But before I get to the reason why I left it, well, you don't really have to watch this whole video. You can just look at my community post on my main channel, which has all the information that you will necessarily need, and it goes a lot more depth of all the details of all that I will probably repeat here. But except this is only in video form, which why not? I thought of it and then said why not. I'm gonna be honest. How I was approached with the idea with coming on the show like Prime Games was, it was during I think 2022. It was around like November through December when we premiered the first episode of Prime Games, and I was approached with the idea of writing / voicing on the show. I've mainly voiced myself because I was a self-insert along with everyone else who was also part of the show, who you might recognize on my channels or who are in my comment section as well. So I was approached with the idea. I respectfully said I didn't really want to be part of it because I really wasn't a big fan of Ian's work as a creator. I was not the biggest fan. I thought his shit was kind of just sloppy at times, or it was just kind of all over the place. But I was told that, hey, this time it'll be different and things will change, right? And I was like, you know what? I did really want to be a part of BFH because, I thought it was cool that, all my friends were working on this show. And I wanted to do that, but I was denied multiple times around that time because, we thought it's too draining or something like that, or some other shit that I won't get into because of how it all ended around that time. And BFH ended because of a lot of toxicity between one another in that group. A lot of time went on and we kind of all reflected on that point. We just thought we were kind of silly. They were really silly. And we all kind of realized 5 years later that, maybe we weren't ready back then, or thought maybe we did need to get rid of this thing because it was kind of just eating us up in a way. I will say that there was a lot of ambition for BFH. There was a lot of things that they did want to do originally that, looking back on it now, we realistically couldn't, or thought it was kind of just shit. So it is what it is. So we all kind of moved on. We all kind of just shook hands and thought, yeah, realistically, we're sorry. So, yeah. But going back to 2022, not 2025, because, time lapse or whatever fuck. I was still, I kind of jumped on board because at that time, I was kind of still bitter towards people who didn't really want me on BFH. And so I said, fuck it, why not? Can't be that bad, right? Oh boy, it'd get pretty bad. A couple months later, we would have a couple arguments. We'd have a couple arguments every now and then between Paul and Ian, or me and Ian, or just some other shit that was kind of just out of nowhere or just kind of random at times. But Paul and Ian were made aware of someone by the name of Bayonet, who also kind of worked in our crew as quote-unquote a writer. And I know I'll, get a lot of flack for this, but Bayonet, before they transitioned, they went by he, him pronouns, right? So anything here will be referred to him as, he, him. I know not a lot of people really get on board with that whole thing. It's like, oh, I think you should respect your pronouns. But, this was my experience with him at the time. Whether he watches this or not, or she watches this now, it's just whatever. We were made aware of their behavior of sexual conversations between her and someone else who was a minor, which I wasn't heavily involved with that. I didn't really question anything. I just let them do it. I was only made aware of some of the things that they were doing, people who were trying to harass Paul about that thing. And I, kind of stayed distant from that. Respectfully, they just kicked him out of the group. And nothing of it happened afterwards. Except with the fact that they brought Bayonet back afterwards. Like maybe 2 months went by. Bayonet got kicked out. Nothing happens. Bayonet comes back. And according to Paul, that was all Ian's idea. It was Ian's idea of bringing Bayonet back because, according to Ian, he kind of missed him. Which, it kind of left a sour taste, but I wasn't going to argue with that just because maybe it was kind of fake. Maybe it was fake or something along the lines of something blah, 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 this, blah, 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 that. Again, people just said it was this was heavily out of context or something like that, right? But I'll get back into that later. Ian, Ian was a lot to handle. Ian would always not kind of focus on, I won't say that he wasn't on board with Prime Games. He was 100% on board with it. He had the artistic skills of the style. Again, he was the key animator and key artist for the show. He was the reason why all the assets looked really well, a lot better compared to the BFH. And yeah, it was because Ian had a lot more experience in terms of as much as I give him shit for his series not being great, again, his experience here worked really well because it was a continuing show that had a lot of episodes that could give him a lot more experience. And yeah, respectfully, he did improve as an artist. He did improve as an animator. But that's as much as props I can really give him because as much as in terms of an artist in an artistic standpoint, he did improve. As a writer, I don't think he really improved that much, or in terms was a lot less creative in that department, I guess. But again, I do think that he was very important to the show. Paul made it very clear that he was very important. But the problem with Ian was that he couldn't handle criticism really well. He would attack voice actors who kind of didn't really like the show, or people who commented outside of even outside of Prime Games. If someone gave him a negative comment on his channel, he would kind of harass the person who made that comment. I remember it left someone else who was working on the show, who was also an animator, said straight up I left the show because of Ian, because he could not handle criticism well. I won't name him out of respect, but he knows who he is, and if he ever decides to come out with his story about Ian or how Prime Games was in general, then that's on him, and I will respect him, keep him private on my video. But yeah, there was a lot of tension between a lot of people with Ian because of the fact that Ian was always so angry and so negative and so hateful towards people who kind of didn't really like his humor or style. Even me, I know I said earlier that I didn't really like Ian. It was because I gave him a lot of shit for a lot of his work because I thought it was not great. And I thought his whole channel had no direction of what he really wanted to do. It was all over. It was again, I have a quote from me saying that Ian's channel was the equivalent of Futuristic Hub, which it really pissed him off. It really did it really pissed him off, which I'm not sorry about that thing. So if he's watching it, I really do not give a shit. But I hope you do well. But not anymore because of the fact that there was actually an incident that was made aware by Paul around the time where, uh, again with some other grooming shit. One of our, I think it was, I'm not even sure it was one of our voice actors, but I think she was a voice actor for Ian's project. I think when she was 14. And given that Ian's characters were kind of sometimes in like sexual episodes or, you know, drawings of them that were kind of sexual, it was kind of weird realizing that the voice actor was 14 at the time when Ian approached her with the idea of like, hey, would you want to voice act for my series? And I thought, you know, like, again, I never really asked for anything to like questioning. I never questioned anything because I was kind of naive about that at that point because I didn't really, I thought, like, I assumed like, oh yeah, she's probably aware, like she's of age at least, right? But that was my assumption, and I assumed wrong. But they came out to Paul and said, hey, Ian messaged me sexually on Snapchat. And it was Paul had all the information about that. I have the recording of him talking to her, and I even spoke to her myself when I was making that documentary about everything there. But it was genuinely the most uncomfortable thing I had to sit through. Not because of her, but because of this fact that she was very young, and I think by that point, I think Ian was 17 or 18, which, regardless of how, again, if he was 17, regardless of like, oh my god, he's still technically a minor, 3-year age gap, it is still kind of grooming, or it is still just really bad to do in general. Like, if he was 18, shame on him for doing that shit. But again, even at 17, like, I don't think it is right, or like at least morally right, to do something like that, right? Again, it's been a while since I've actually like spoken or at least heard any information on that, but I do think that shit was just not right. And even Paul agreed himself, like, that shit was not right. And he said it himself, like, he went up to, like, again, he had his whole operation done on Ian, to basically kind of set him up, but, you know, people kind of snitched on him, so he just had to go confront him himself, or just like admit that, like, hey, this is going on, what the fuck is going on? And Ian was just like, dude, it was like some dumb shit, some excuse or something like that. But it did cause Ian to go offline, and none of us are aware of where he's at. For all I know, he could be under a different persona, or just existing, or just coasting along the lines of life, and no one knows where he's at. I'll get into that later, though. What again, I'm not gonna say what exactly happened to Ian, but I will admit something that I was doing later on. Nothing really, nothing the same, not the same shit of what they were doing. Fuck no, I would fucking kill myself if that was ever the case. But Ian was gone. Ian was kicked from the group, and me and Paul realized that, hey, we might need to take BFH on hiatus for a very, very long time, because by that point we were still pumping out episodes. We were still making episodes of Prime Games. We were making really good progress of what we wanted to do with the show. It was within our vision of what exactly the characters were built off of, and a lot of it is a shame because episode 7 would have actually seen conclusions or continuations of a lot of the characters. And again, if you want to go look for that, it's in my community post on my main channel. And, you know, there was a guy who asked a question, you know, and I do answer a few of them. A lot of it being the main characters who would have died, lived, or story that would have played on. So, again, if you are curious, I do recommend you read that if you are at least a bit interested in what was going on with Prime Games at that point. But going back to Bayonet, I'll skim through it really quickly because it is a lot. uh, turns out that the person who was being groomed by Bayonet was still technically still being groomed by them. And Paul had the information about that as well. Paul had told us in secret that Bayonet was kind of a shitty person towards her, and that it was, yes, he was still grooming her. And we tried hard to just say, hey, you should, to the victim, to just say, hey, you should stop talking to him. And believe me, I took it in my own hand. Granted, I was not perfect. I was very mean about it, and I was kind of shitty. And it is something I'm not proud of, but it was such a frustrating time at that point, because everyone wanted to help her. Everyone did, but we kind of felt as if she didn't want us to help her. And I know there's a lot of studies about what that actually could mean. I won't get into it because I'm not a professional therapist. I won't say what she might have or what people might think. But again, I am not a professional. So I could only just sit there and just say, hey, that I was frustrated, that, we tried, but nothing really came of it, right? So when I say I took it into my own hands or my own matter, is that I made it public that, hey, Bayonet, you're a piece of shit. Stop grooming children. Or not children, but like, she was like 17 at that point. So again, she was still, main thing being that she was still very young. So we just said, hey, you need to break up with him. She didn't want to, she didn't see it, or she didn't care. Again, I won't get into what that basically fucking means. But I made it public. He saw it. He dumped her. And he kind of dipped for a while afterwards. And that was kind of the end of it, as we thought. Because not even a month later, turns out that here's the reason why I left it. Here's the reason why I left Prime Games. Paul basically groomed the same girl that was being groomed by Bayonet. And it was the most infuriating, frustrating moment that any of our friend group has ever had. Because of the amount of stupidity that had to happen during that time. And then there's recordings, there's messages, there's a lot of everything that happened. And again, it is kind of a rinse. I'm not going to go through it again because it is basically a rinse and repeat cycle. What Bayonet did basically happened here, except without half of the manipulation there, because Paul was kind of a dick, but a lot of the shit that did happen with Bayonet and her kind of did happen with Paul and her as well. And the reason why Paul won't ever admit why he had to cancel Prime Games was because of the fact that he had no one left. By the time Ian and Bayonet left, me and maybe like two other people were like, hey, we know you want to continue the show. We will help you continue the show. Me as a writer and another friend who was probably going to help him animate, because again, as much as we say Ian was the key animator or key artist, the person who left the show originally had a lot more experience than Ian in general. And the news of Paul basically admitting in a conversation that is recorded, we have everything that we need from it, basically admitting that he could give fuck all about us just to be with her. And the reasoning why it was kind of just frustrating was because of the fact how scummy it really was in hindsight, because he confessed his love to her a week before she turned 18, and then the week of her birthday. And there was someone who there's someone who, I'm not gonna say who witnessed it happen, but they were in the same group chat when said person was live streaming, and then later on, not mind you, not live, because God forbid that should be live, but basically they kind of had e-sex basically, which it was just so fucking weird. Like, even trying to put it into words, like, it is kind of just, I could feel it coming back. I remember all of it now, but it was such a weird time, and I fucking blew a gasket about that shit, because how the fuck does that even happen, dog? I know this video is just me talking about it, like talking about why I left Prime Games in an incoherent ramble. I feel like a fucking drunk, like I feel like I'm drunk talking, having to speak about this shit, right? I'm missing up my words because it is something that I held in for a while, and it was just like, dude, this is such a shitty thing to do. And the worst part about it was that convincing them to break up then and there didn't even help, because Paul kind of lied about breaking up with said person and then still talking to them behind our backs. We all by that point said fuck it and then stopped talking to them, which again, when we first stopped talking to them, the words that we exchanged at that time wasn't the best, because it was a lot of things that were said towards this person that was kind of shitty. And, you know, we all apologized to it. We all apologized to her later on, because that's not what she really needed. She needed friends to actually tell her that, hey, this is happening again and this is not okay. As much as you think that someone might like you, this isn't the way people should approach you in terms of having, again, I'm not going to talk about the sexual part of any relationship, because again, it's just not something I'm comfortable talking about. But I don't think anyone in general should have to use you for like either like ERP or like e-sex or just sex in general. I think someone should just love you just for who you are. And again, that's just my only opinion about that. If someone is just using you for sex, I don't think it's a relationship that should be worth it, right? Because at that point they got what they wanted, they got what they needed, so they just said fuck it and they just dip, right? Again, I'm not gonna fucking talk about their relationship, because for goodness sake, it was just so weird. And it's not even that like she turned 18, right? Again, people will say, well, she's not 18, but like Paul was 22. Paul is 22. It's not like he's like a year younger or a year old. Not a year younger. It's not like she's like a year older or 2 years older. He is like probably like 3 to 4 years older than her, right? Maybe 5. I don't know. I hate to do math right now, just because I'm just rambling about this shit. But it was just, I don't know. It was just kind of fucking weird. And it's the fact that she was also still in high school. I think she was in her senior year of high school as well, which people could argue even then, which I really don't really want to fucking have that argument there. But it was kind of shitty on his part, the fact that he got on two people's asses about that thing, and then just for him to fall for the same shit. Like, I don't blame the victim. I blame only those who just fell for that shit. Like, Paul, he's at fault. Bayonet's at fault. Ian's at fault for the shit that they did. And at that point, we all cut ties with him. Again, Paul can say this about us. Like, again, he could try to tiptoe his way around the shit that he's been trying to say for like the past year and a half, because he has no friends. Paul has no friends. And at the time of this being recorded, Paul released a finale to his show called Primefall, which was so, like, you can tell based off of the quality of even BFH, like the first 3 episodes of BFH, the quality differences in Primefall compared to early BFH, it is baffling. It is bad. The thing about Primefall is that there's no story. There's nothing about it that makes me want to care about the characters, right? It just, here's a multiverses paradox or bullshit. You can't beat me, and then they end up beating him anyways. It is not a great story. And he can watch this video. I probably think he's probably watching this video. Paul, if you are listening to me right now, that shit was ass. That shit was a pack of ass, dog. That shit stinkier than the shit I took this morning, bro. Like, again, there was no passion into that. And I understand having to release something out of necessity. But all it does, it leaves the story just flat. There's nothing about it that makes me think that's a really good finale. I think it is a finale, and that's it. It's not a great finale. I know for damn well, Paul, that was not the story that you wanted to tell. Not even close. You can't lie to me and say that was the story that you wanted to make. But that was the story you had to make, because at that point you had no one here. You didn't have me, you didn't have Ian, you didn't have Bayonet, you didn't have everyone else to just help you out. And this kind of shows that you yourself lack the quality of a creator who wanted to make something out of passion. And with the passion that you had, it just vaporized when you just threw it all away. That is my last message to you. I know this video, it's long, I know. And I know everyone who probably might be watching this are confused or just don't, just have this, again, as background noise for whatever they might be doing. But it is just, it's just something that kind of just, it hurts, Paul was someone who, I looked up to, He was someone as a content creator, I really, really admired his work. I know people will question, well, what is there admire to? Again, as a creator who often, before I knew him as he wasn't even an animator beforehand. He was he did live streams, and Paul was, what he did was that he had fun, which was something I was like, oh, I should just probably have fun making things. But it's such a bizarre way of thinking that that all of it could change so rapidly. And it was just such a weird time for everyone. Even him. Like, the whole thing happening kind of just shattered all the friendship that he had. And even then, there was people who started to question him morally as like someone who changed. And again, I won't get into it because I personally do not care about who someone believes in, right? In terms of religion, because I don't really think that religion should automatically identify who I should be around with. Again, I respect everyone, whether we have the same belief system or if we are completely fucking different in terms of political aspects or just backgrounds in general, right? I never really hate anyone for certain reasons, right? I only hate in terms of the actions that they portrayed himself online or offline. And Paul ticked all the boxes of why I resented him or hated him the way I did around early 2025. Because it was such a weird fucking thing to do. And, you know, I have all of the information I need on him in terms of him admitting and quote unquote breaking up, but I'm not gonna expose what I know now in late 2025 or midway through 2025. I still have all the information. I even have new ones as well. So if anyone's watching this towards the end, I'm sorry for the ramble mess of a video or just the abundance of just random shit that is being said right now. But yeah, this was something I held in, and the reason why I left Prime Games was because of stupidity and this sheer lack of common sense by everyone who was involved. Not everyone, because I still got my Pookies who worked on that show, who animated and voiced. But everyone else who I had the misfortune to ever meet in my life, please, for the love of God, stay off the internet. And peace.